Hey, what's up? Back again, and a lovely 11:30. I got the time completely wrong yesterday, so my apologies for anyone that watched the show until the end. And I put up a link, and I said I think I put 11 a.m. In the UK, which was totally wrong. It was always 11:30. Don't know what was going on yesterday, but welcome back anyway for another daily dose of wrestling from Powered for TV. I'm your host, John Scott, and we're just going to be. I've decided Wednesday maybe to take a little bit of a throwback episode and talk about some of the past and oldies and great wrestlers that we remember from the 80s and 90s. For some of you, I mean, I guess showing my age here, you might not have even watched the product, so it'll be, I don't know, maybe a little bit of an education, but in a fun way. I'm just going to talk from my own experiences about those wrestlers. I'm not going to give you too many facts and details because guess what? We got Wikipedia and all the rest of it. You know, we've got a thing called the internet. So I'm not going to bore you to tears with like date of birth and go through every stage of somebody's career. But yeah, feel free to drop some comments in and suggestions for anybody to talk about. I've had a few already from Mr. Mike Angus and Stewie Palmer this morning. Give a good shout out to those two guys. Got a little woo going on here from Mike. I'll put that up. That gives me energy, Mike. That gives me energy. Ric Flair in the morning, woo, gives me energy. You know, that's what you need on a Wednesday morning. I think. Maybe we should make that a thing where we go into our own workplaces. The moment you walk through the door, all your other colleagues have to just cheer woo. I think that should become a thing. That should become a thing. And yeah, I've had a lot of suggestions already. So I've got like at least 3 kind of sussed out that I'm going to talk about and I'll give you some little facts. Just want to give a shout out to Carl Rogers. He's a fantastic guy. He's got his own Carl's Wrestling over on YouTube. Go and check that out. He's doing a tremendous job. I tell you what, I'm a little bit jealous because he's in with almost everybody at the minute. He's all over the place. In fact, I might go as far to say that he's probably more networking worthy than Mr. Angus himself, who's doing a tremendous job at this time. So it goes to show you how far Mr. Rogers has gone and doing well, and at some point I'm going to have him on the show as well. We're going to talk about some wrestling, and he's going to make me feel very old as well when we talk about some of the guys that he used to, or he likes and watches. Don't forget, as always, if you want to check out some good wrestling content, not just from the UK but from overseas as well, powered4.tv is a video on demand streaming service. We've got over 25 promotions, and like I always say, you can go and check that out. We've got a code going here right at the bottom for you, 50% off the first month when you use the code SP3. Just go and check that out now, and you'll be able to get 50% off. And I'm going to go through some of the content that I'm going to give you some recommendations for, because sometimes stuff on the VOD itself does get lost. So I'm going to like give you some where to goes, if you like. But But yeah, thank you for all those. Don't forget any suggestions. Like, I'm kind of looking for wrestlers in the 80s, like obviously late 80s, maybe early to mid 90s, that are more obscure. You know, like we had a time in WWF where you was everything but a wrestler as a profession. I mean, you could be a mechanic, you'd probably make it. You could be I don't know, like a salesman. You could be a lawyer. You could be, I mean, it was literally, you had to be everything but a wrestler to make it, it seemed. And some guys really did get the raw end of the deal. Obviously, like I'm going to throw out, obviously, someone like Red Rooster. I mean, think about it. You know, you're a legit wrestler. You've had all this incredible background. And then, I don't know, creative come to you and they say, you know, sit down, take a seat. Maybe he's sitting there thinking, oh, what's it going to be? It's going to be my dream. And then they say the Red Rooster. Just imagine your face after hearing something like that. I could not imagine, to be quite honest with you. Anyway, look, I'm going to start with a suggestion earlier when I said I was going to go live. Mr. Mike Angus, another shout out to him. I want to give a shout out to him because he is, I mean, he's all over the place. He does wrestling travel on Thursdays from, let me think, I think that's from 4 p.m. every Thursday on Wrestling Travel Facebook. But you can also check him out all over our Powered 4 TV. He's a fantastic ring announcer, one of the best, in my opinion. Brings a little bit of, he's got his own identity, if you will. Fantastic at that. And he's also one of our hosts on Added Time, which is available every Sunday. For all those football, soccer fans out there, you can check that out. That goes on from 7 p.m. every week. And in fact, my team today are playing. It's the FA Cup day. So I suppose we could mix it up a little bit if there are football fans watching. I don't want to flood this show with football, because once you start talking about football, it doesn't stop. It's one of those things where my passion for wrestling and football are, what I would say, are very equal. However, I get more aggressive on the football side of things, because I feel like, man, these guys, you know, they could do more. But there you go. My team, Tottenham, will be in action against Mr. Stu Palmer's Everton tonight. So I think that we're probably going out. So I haven't got too many high hopes. Although I will just bring up my glass. I'm sure if you can see it, that's nothing terrific in there, just a bit of squash. But my Tottenham glass, there you go. That's the only representing I'm doing for today for Tottenham. Anyway, look, back to wrestling. That's what you're here for. Let's start with Mike Angus, who mentioned Doink the Clown. Yeah, Doink the Clown. We probably last saw him at last year's Money in the Bank, where they made a little cameo. Obviously, that wasn't what you'd call Doink the Clown. I think it was the same actor or whatever he was doing there as that played the janitor. He was mopping the floor earlier in another scene on that Money in the Bank match, but he then came out later dressed as Doink the Clown, and yeah, it was a bit weird. Probably my least favorite incarnation of Doink the Clown. Now, the fascinating thing about Doink is that there's been loads of different people portraying him. I think if I'm being honest, like, everybody maybe has their distinct version with him. Mine, realistically, obviously, has to be Matt Osborne. I mean, and he was a legit great wrestler. I mean, no doubt about it. But here, this is what I'm saying to you guys earlier about being sat in maybe a room in Titan Towers. Vince comes out and he says, "Guess what I got for you, buddy? I've got a clown. I've got a clown gimmick, and we're going to push you out." But to be fair, Doink the Clown, I mean, I had his figure. I had as much merch as I could. I mean, he did stand out. I used to get WWF annuals. I think they still do them, but they're nowhere near as good as they used to be, because obviously, showing my age again, I think I'm going to keep saying this, you know, on this bloody show. But anyway, showing my age again, this is before a time we had internet. We didn't see too many photos, things like that. So getting the WWF, you know, the sort of end year magazine that would have the best bits in it, you'd get these wonderful glossy photos, pictures that were taken I think for the most part, in a lot of, I mean, especially in the early days, probably independent photographers. That's something you'd never see nowadays. I mean, everything is now very much internal WWE stuff. But you used to have guys just running around the ring. Heyman was one for a long time in the Garden for the old WWF, and guys like Bill Apter and that, they just run around and take photos, get it back to their magazine, and that's what it was about. I actually enjoyed that because there was a lot to it back then, and yeah, I thought that was like a really cool thing for the magazine. Anyway, going off subject here, you used to get this in, and used to see all these wrestlers in the end of the year magazine of WWF, and I used to love it because they were all beautifully glossy. And I remember the one that had Doink the Clown. I could not tell you for love nor money what on earth year that was, but I remember seeing Doink the Clown. I thought this guy stands out, like regardless of maybe he was sitting there probably thinking, like scratching his head, like what the hell am I going to do with his character? He did stand out. He does leave an impression, and that's probably why somebody like Mike has suggested him right now, because you know it's kind of a nostalgia thing, and WWE have even reintroduced him down the years, even if he's just coming in and out, you know, here and there. He's doing his thing as a little cameo. They do always reintroduce it. You know, if there's one guy I actually get sick and tired of seeing that does that, is the Boogeyman. I've never really got the whole Boogeyman act, but I tell you what, he's in with the WWE because they always give him a call. So obviously he's never bad mouth them, from what I can imagine, because he's always getting a call up, no doubt about it. What we got here, just going to read out some of the stuff. I'm trying to keep up with these guys. Should bring them days back. Yeah, oh, mate, I'd love that. Imagine that, a powered 4 magazine. I'd love to do it, Mike, and I'd love to do it like a retro type feel to it, like not too retro where it becomes a gimmick, but like presenting it in that way, that nostalgic way, that huge glossy photos, bit of information, trivia, facts, and all that. And yeah, I mean, maybe I don't know what the marketplace is like. I mean, the last time I went down to my newsagents, there were not as many wrestling magazines as you used to be able to get. I mean, in all seriousness, yes, there's a few UK dedicated ones, but you've got to go to specific places to get them. And the WWE ones are, you know, probably again for me just not up to standard. I mean, we had guys like Vince Russo writing back in the day. Let's not forget Mr. Venom himself really putting a spin on those magazines, and that used to make it more interesting because it was like 2 layers of WWE. But nowadays everything is very much tailored in one direction. It is very much, this is it. Going to give a quick shout out before I carry on. Here we go. Linda there, she's always does a fantastic job. So it shares us to the East Streaming Sports. I want to encourage people to go over there and check that out. They do loads and loads of podcasts and live shows on just about anything really that you want to get into. So there's always great variety over there. Go and check that out. Big thank you there to her. But yeah, going back to the magazines, I mean, I used to be able to go into a shop when I was about 15 maybe. And honestly, this shop used to have about up to maybe 16, 17 wrestling magazines. I mean, you had I think it was the All American Wrestling magazine. There was PWI, of course. That was always there. The Pro Wrestling Illustrated. You had WOW was another one, of course, the infamous Power Slam in the UK that everybody would remember very well. And then you had not only one WWE magazine, you had 2 because you had a Raw one as well. Then you had all the WCW magazines. And yeah, honestly, you could. It was really cool because you could find out things that I just never knew about, like a lot of ECW stuff. I would imagine that back in the day, you know, when the territories were at its height, magazines were incredibly like worthy things to purchase because you didn't have the internet. You would not find out other results from other places, and sometimes the only way you'd find out about a wrestler is to look it up through a magazine, and you'd have to kind of go on the writer been as transparent as possible, giving you an honest reflection of what he saw. And the thing is, I think looking back, like I've got a lot of those old magazines. I've got a whole garage full of an unhealthy habit of picking up and collecting magazines. I mean, they go back, I think the earliest one I've got is in the 60s. And I think only like a couple of them. The only person I know who's got another copy is Jim Cornette, because he's a massive collective guy as well, collections guy, as everyone knows. But when you go back and read them, you do start to realize there was maybe a bias towards some promotions and wrestlers, because the way they were written, it didn't quite reflect, after going back and seeing them in like person and watching it on TV or whatnot. And you can get a lot of that stuff on YouTube. Anyway, look, I am going off on a tangent about magazines here. I'm supposed to be talking about Doink the Clan. So Doink the Clan, anyway, back to the original point I was talking about. In my WWF magazine, I saw him there. This guy stood out to me. I'm trying to think. Obviously, they did that crazy thing at WrestleMania 10 where there were like loads of them, and they did some kind of gimmick match type thing. I personally, as far as a in-ring wrestler, I didn't really probably get as much as maybe what I should have done, perhaps. And I was at the age where I was impressionable by those type of characters, but I didn't really get the whole concept in ring. I liked his stuff outside the ring. I thought he was nasty, but as soon as the bell rung, I don't know, it took me out of it a bit. I think maybe the costume was just a little bit too colourful, a little bit too much in your face, and maybe what they should have done. I mean, if you look back on it now and you think of like iconic films like Batman's become, and obviously the Joker is a very old DC character and villain. He's been around for years, but I think maybe they took out the version of what we remember Adam West's Batman, and they took that kind of a Joker. He was very much going to be running around backstage doing this kind of thing. That's my envision of Doink the Clan, unfortunately, is just doing that. But yeah, other guys that portrayed him, obviously, because he had a lot of people, I think different people at different times. I'm just looking up now, there's a lot of guys. I mean, it's crazy to think, obviously, like here it's giving credit on Wikipedia, it gives credit even for Chris Jericho just for coming out one night as him. So to attack William Regal, I'm not sure if I would count that as much, but Jeff Jarrett as well, he's got another nod there for dressing up as him, doing a prank. Eugene also in 2003 by all accounts did a similar thing. But the other guys to check out for back in the day that I think is worthy of saying who else portrayed him, because I don't know that those ones are, but you've got Steve Lombardi, occasionally wrestled as Doink, it says here. Mainly, now I've heard about this, he did the majority of house shows. So I think, I mean, if we're being honest, back then, that if you're a kid, maybe if you're an adult, you would see through it. I don't know how much you'd really care, but they used to send him out on the house shows, which would be going on a weekend. I don't really see a big problem in that. I mean, I'm sure if they could get away with it more today, they would. In fact, I'm sure they just make. I think we're going to get to a point in WWE today where they just make holograms of wrestlers. Just think, you know what, we've got no fans. The wrestlers can't do all the moves we need them to. They get injured too much or whatever. Let's just build one. Let's just build one and like have these lasers set up in this Thunderdome thing, and we'll just do animation. We'll do animation and we'll do it our way. Because they're already doing so much themselves with the piping in the crowd noise and all the screens, and they change. And just think WWE is getting to a stage where it's becoming so perfect that for me, I don't enjoy it because it is too perfect. I think I was having this chat with my friend the other day who hasn't watched wrestling in about 15 years, and he watched some wrestling, some WWE stuff last week, and he said to me, "Man, this ain't what I remember. This is like this is not this." This is nothing like I remember from the Attitude Days. And he described it to me like every entrance look like a video game entrance because they don't change. They don't even tweak. Every entrance, the camera angle's the same. The strobe lighting is the same. The angles, the way the wrestler moves, it is all the same. And then I was reading that they were all encouraged never to sell an injury because a lot of I think Kevin Dunn or Vince, they feel like that makes you look weak. You need to be strong when you come out. And so that really takes you out of everything as well, because basically every time there's a wrestling entrance, you are, in theory, just watching a video game entrance because it's going to be the same regardless. And there's no uniqueness to it. It is almost just too perfect for its own good. And I would say that probably changed around, I would say 2006. I think since then, you can't go back. Like if there's wrestling on now, unless there's specific wrestlers I know, like main eventers, I couldn't tell you what year or era we're watching. But back in the 90s and 80s, my goodness, you could tell the difference year by year. And we're even at the point now where even sets, like pay-per-view sets, they all look the same. There's no identity to anything. So anyway, look, I've got a habit for doing this, going on a tangent about it. But yeah, Doink the Clan, Steve Lombardi, obviously another one. Then we got Ray Apollo as well. He did him. I think that's when the Doink, Matt had left the company first time round. Let's going to just go back now and check out some of the comments, what you guys have been saying about good old Doink. I mean, like, to anybody, I don't know, like, where does he rate? I mean, from what I understand, and I have looking around it, I'm trying to like do two things at once, but I don't think he won any kind of title or anything like that in the WWE. I'm not even sure if he even got a title shot. He might have done. I could be a house show or something. I could be totally wrong, but there's nothing that flies off the cuff with me. Just showing how bad my planning is for this kind of stuff. But let's throw up a few comments here. Mr. Angus is doing a fantastic job for me. He's keeping me going here with creative stuff. For those people that might be watching later, still put in your comments. I'd love to know. I'll go back on them and we'll talk about it on our next live show. Let's have a look here. We've got Mike. I love the specials they did. Superstars magazines was excellent, and the biography. Yeah, I totally with you there, mate. Absolutely, that was really good as well. You know what? For some reason my mind has gone totally blank on all those old magazines, but I've probably got about 40 to 50 different publishers that I collected. I'm trying to think of it was a much smaller magazine. It was I'm sure it was America Wrestling or something, but those were really out there in terms of what they're doing. And also Mike says someone spoke about that last year when they all motioned. Yeah, I totally agree. I honestly, I think that, like, because the one thing that came out of WrestleMania last year was how great the Undertaker's Boneyard match was and the whole John Cena thing. And obviously then WWE went to do that Money in the Bank. I mentioned this earlier, and that's actually a time we saw Doink the Clan as well. And that was just like, damn, like, is this the way we're going? It was almost like 24/7 title ramped up, where all these wrestlers are chasing after one another and they're going into rooms and goodness knows what else. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you there wholeheartedly. Okay, well, I mean, I haven't given too much here about Doink the Clan, so I do apologize for that. But I'm just going off my own feelings on this one, so I'm not going to give you the whole spiel about his career. There are other better podcasts and shows out there that can do that. I'm not sure. I think Something to Wrestle With have covered Doink. So that, and I remember listening to that. So go and check that out if you want some real insight. I'm just purely talking from my own experience of these wrestlers. I'm going to bring another guy up now. Here we go, Repo Man. Now, for anybody that used to listen to my old podcast, will remember I was spamming a lot of people when they kept saying who was going to end up being. Do you remember that whole hacker thing? And then it just went to God knows where, and it was going on and on and on. I said to everybody back then, I said, I know it is. It's the Repo Man. And it was a joke. I mean, I think I did it on like an April Fool's, and nobody really twigged. And I kept taking it quite serious to the point where people thought I was being real and legit, and I was only actually kidding them. But Repo Man as well, like again, I just want to talk about Doink Doink. He just to finish up on him, for the most part with Matt Osborne, was between obviously when he came in that sort of early 90s era, but here we got a guy who was obviously part of the Demolition tag team, and then again, like just picture yeah, just picture him sitting there, and then I know Vince comes in and says, right, I've got this character, this is going to work for you. I'm going to give you Repo Man. Repo Man. I mean, I don't know what you'd come out of thinking. And then on top of that, maybe they introduce what you're going to wear, the costume, which is like, I mean, it was a cross between like what looked like the Riddler from the Adam West Batman again. And like he had this big coat, as I recall. I thought to myself, like, what the hell? Is this what repo guys look like in the US? Is this how they go around and take your vehicles and all the rest of it? But of course, there were those wonderful promo vignettes that they did, and they did these very well. They're very comedic. Bruce Pritchard, a lot behind a lot of those stuff, and it was sometimes when they did that, not for all guys, because some of it made zero sense, but I actually liked them doing it. They don't do it enough today, because the issue is because we've got NXT, those guys just come up and supposedly you know all about them already. But it's kind of a shame, because they kind of they probably need to do now, where they do those vignettes before they get to NXT. It's almost like you've got to have another tier level. But in any case, I remember Carlito having one, who's recently coming back, just to keep a little bit of current affairs here. But Carlito come in with that, Carlito, Caribbean, cool. As I recall, I always thought those were really good ideas. Not always worked out well, but most of them did. I remember Crime Time had a really cool one as well. And it just, look, we know it's all whatever it is, we're not going to pretend it's real, but I do like those introductions. I do feel like they give it some extra stuff. But man, when you see Repo Man, you're thinking to yourself, right, how's this going to work in a wrestling match? But to his credit, I think there's some guys, you get a character and it's like, you know what, I'm not gonna bother. With him, he looked like he was actually into it, and Darso done a great job. Obviously, here I'm just reading up on the description of how they describe him, which is a domino mask similar to the Lone Ranger. Yeah, that's probably about right, to be fair. And yeah, I mean, even here it's mainly from the portrayal of the Riddler from one of the iconic comics. So they did probably look at that quite a bit. But again, he had some interesting feuds. I'm just looking back to refresh my memory here, but shortly after he debuted, it was saying here on Wikipedia, he was hired by Ted DiBiase. And you know what? I can't visualize all that happening. I've got to be honest with you. And yet I thought I knew everything about how he came in, but I didn't know that was one of the cases. This led to a series of matches with Virgil, Ted DiBiase, to help him defeat Virgil for the $1 million. Okay. So it's when he broke off with Virgil. That was, of course, the Tuesday Night in Texas pay-per-view. One of the best. Repo Man and DiBiase defeated then Tito Santana. What was that? A 2-on-1 match as well there. So yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and check some of that out, to be honest with you. It's kind of made me want to look at it. He did have then an appearance in the Royal Rumble, sneaking. I do remember this very well. He eliminated Nikolai Volkov, of course, and Greg the Hammer Valentine before being eliminated by the Big Boss Man. That's another guy I want to talk about as well. We're going to get to him shortly. But yeah, he made WrestleMania from that year. This is what I remember. He had a feud with the British Bulldog in '92, and I just remember them, the back and forths, everything they were saying to one another. And yeah, that's probably when I kind of cotton onto him as a performer, being a kid, and that was my thing. I actually liked that feud. I probably wouldn't now. I'd probably go back and think, what it's like if you're into video games and you have this perception as you get older. I really used to enjoy that video game, and then you have the opportunity to go back and play it. Like you see them a lot now. The Commodore have done it, Sega Mega Drive done it. They bring out NES, they bring out these mini versions. You think, oh yeah, this will be good. Someone will get that for you for a Christmas or birthday or whatever. You plug it in, you get all nostalgic, you put it on, and you're like, this ain't doing it for me. You know, like you get 10 minutes out of it and then boom, it's gone. It's like, how could I have sat there for all those hours as a kid playing this? But that's how this feels sometimes. When you go back on wrestling, sometimes things are not always as you remember them being or as powerful as the moment. And a lot of this sometimes is reflected, I think, on that. And probably back to what I was saying earlier about everything being just way too perfect, that you can notice the difference. You know, it almost looks like WWF back then is like an indie show or something. Anyway, yeah, they would have, yeah, that's right. May 3rd, 1992, on an episode of Wrestling Challenge, they had their match, Bulldog and Mr. Repo Man. The two had a series of house show matches as well on Primetime Wrestling. What show that was as well. Would love to have something like Primetime or Titans back, that interview kind of talk show that they were doing, hosted by McMahon. Excellent, you know, like that sports jacket he used to wear, fantastic. I actually think that I know they do Talking Smack and stuff like that, but like I'd love them to come up with a better concept and do something like that. Whole thing they were doing on Fox with CM Punk, it wasn't something I could just get into because it just seemed so forced. A lot of the stuff, and you kind of really took you out of the moment because they weren't keeping kayfabe at all. It was like you watch Game of Thrones and then straight after you get Thronecast. That's what that looked like to me. And it was like, so you've made me sit there for 3 hours trying to tell me this is the most important thing about Raw or whatever, only for then to just talk about it like it's a TV show. I really did not like that idea of it. I understand independent media talking about it in that way, but why you would do it internally, I have no idea. I think it's one of the things that spoils it for me with WWE these days, and not protecting the business enough. You know, I'm sure it sounds a bit grumpy and miserable, but honestly, I can't tell you how much it would probably help them if they just protected the business a bit more. Anyway, look, I'm going on a tangent again on all this now. Obviously, Repo Man, it lasted until, I believe, what we got here, March 28th, 1993. Going out, his final recorded match was against Typhoon. So there you go. He was probably done for in a job match, a squash match, no doubt. In all that, I would imagine. Right, let's check out what else have we got. I'll tell you what, before we do that, I'm going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to come back with another interesting character. Don't forget, guys, if you want to add anything in the comments, some other guys that you want me to talk about, go ahead, let me know, and we'll do that as much as I can in this final part of the show. Thanks for anyone that's been coming in and out. Appreciate that very much. Please like and share, and we'll be back straight after this little ad.
We are the art in the ring. We are the bright lights. We are the squared circle and the life of the fight. We are the spine buster, the pile driver and brutal knee. We are the thrill. We are the fight. We are Ricky Knight. We are the choke slam and the spear. We are the fans, the chanting, and the flowing beer. We are Jess, Johners, and John Scott. We are the crowd pleasers, the nail biters, and the risk takers. We are here to capture for you to admire. We build the vision for you to explore. Here at Powered 4.
All right, so we are back, and we are talking today. I'm making this a thing every Wednesday now. Don't forget, I'm on every Wednesdays from 11:30 a.m. UK time, GMTs. You can catch me. I talk about all kinds of things, but Wednesdays I'm going to dedicate to old school nostalgia wrestling. I think that's just going to be a thing. Mondays I'm always on 5 p.m. UK time with the Oracle of Wrestling, Mr. SP3, and you can see a code running down just below me here for 50% off of our video wrestling streaming on demand site. I'm going to get to some of that as well. I'm going to give you guys some recommendations to go out your way and check. So hang around for that. But yeah, Tuesdays, I'm going to be doing, let me think about this, Monday 5 p.m. UK time, powered for SP3. Wednesdays 11:30 a.m. UK time, we're going to do nostalgia stuff, and then Fridays I'm going to be doing 11:30 a.m. and I don't know what we're going to be doing then. I might be doing maybe anything but wrestling, who knows, at that point, because sometimes like it can be a bit daunting, but like wrestling, the great thing with it is it's got a nice crossover. Speaking of crossovers, and goodness knows what else has been going on, obviously I was on yesterday doing a live stream, and I was reading out what happened with Nia Jax in a match. This is before I actually got to see that version of the clip, because the one I watched, WWE had got their hands on it and already edited that moment out. I think by them doing it, that's how this thing got viral, because as soon as you ban something, like, you're just asking for it. So I thought that was absolutely hilarious, what happened there in that match. I mean, yeah, just one of those things. I mean, I'm sure that if there were fans going in like every week, I'm sure you'd see some sort of chants or posters for Nia Jax going up, quite frankly. But yeah, it's the version I watched, they'd already chucked that out. WWE had already got their hands on it, and yeah, I couldn't see what everyone was going on about. So yeah, very, very funny stuff, very interesting. Now I'm gonna turn our attention to another throwback wrestler. Don't forget, if you want to like recommend anybody, I mean, we're running down time here, but we've already done Repo Man, Doink the Clown, and I'm just talking about these guys from my own experience. I'm not going to give you the whole spiel of like a Wikipedia version of when they were born and all that, because like I said, there's far better shows than mine that can give you that. I'm just purely talking from my own stuff. So I am now going to get to another one, and that is the Big Boss Man. This was recommended again by Mr. Angus. This is a good shout, this. I was actually going to do the Big Boss Man anyway, because back in the day, he was one of my favorite figures, just for the fact that he used to obviously look like a cop to me. Like, I don't know, like my envision of what a US cop would look like used to be the Big Boss Man. And he used to not just be a wrestler for me. He was like playing the occupation in my other toy playing days of imagination and goodness knows what else. But yes, the Big Boss Man himself. Now, he had kind of two very different spells in WWE, but the interesting thing with him, it's like when he did come back that second time in the Attitude Era, I mean, to be honest with you, you got to think about it. You got to think, well, how could the Big Boss Man make it in the Attitude Era. Like, that character just seemed so over the top and very much a part of that era of occupations. But when they brought him back, I mean, this is the funniest thing, is they didn't change his name, but obviously they changed his look. He was wearing, like, he had a nightstick, he had like bulletproof padding armor on and stuff like that, which was good because they kind of modernized it a bit and they needed to do that. But I love the fact that they kept his name, because they could have easily, and trust me, Vince does this a lot, they could have easily changed him to a different name and just pretend it's somebody different and blah blah blah. I love the fact they kept to the Big Boss Man, quite frankly. Anyway, the original time, of course, for the Big Boss Man, realistically, because we remember him well, in all this, and his time, obviously, with the WWF, or as it was back then, was a time, I guess, where I don't know, like, Big Boss Man coming in was the whole thing with Nows, and yeah, they kind of made specific characters for him. But yeah, he started in 1988. I always remember him just being involved in, like, Survivor Series matches and stuff like that. But for me, my own perception of Bossman is I actually enjoyed him as a wrestler. I mean, I thought, regardless of the crazy over the top occupation that they've thrown on him and character and all the rest of it, Boss Man could pull it off to an extent. Like, he did have something about him where it was kind of somewhat believable. It wasn't like what I would call fantastic. Like, don't get me wrong, there were other stuff out there better, but he had some quite high profile matches and stuff like that he did. I'm just looking on here because I'm trying to refresh my memory with all this stuff. But obviously, yeah, he done the Boss Man began his first major WWF angle by attacking Hulk Hogan on the Brother Love show, which yes, that's what probably the most iconic part. And again, think about it. You're coming in, like, at that end, and you're thinking, like, wow, all of a sudden, I've got. Sorry about this, guys. I'm just messing about my likes. It was like way too bright for my liking. That's a bit better. Yeah, you're thinking, wow, he's coming in here against Hulk freaking Hogan, the biggest star of that time, of that generation. No, a merchandise juggernaut in terms of what that guy could sell back then, and you're getting that payday to do some main events with Hogan. Like, that's a big deal for me. And yeah, he formed a tag team with Akeem. I remember that very well. Of course, he was billed as the one man gang at one point, the Twin Towers. And yeah, the face turn is probably, I mean, Boss Man as a face is probably what I remember more so than his heel run, is when he turned babyface. And it was quite interesting because he'd done some quite heinous attacks with Hogan and all the rest of it, and yet people just just forgave him. Like, they were like, well, he's a good guy now, we'll go with him. Which was quite interesting, really, just how forgiving people were back then for the good old Big Boss Man. But for me, I just loved the over the top character that he brought. The promos were very much what you'd get back then. A lot of shouty stuff backstage, I'm gonna do this to you, rah, 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 rah. It was very much that. But look, back in that time, you couldn't pull it apart. The only person that probably wasn't doing the shouty stuff is probably Jake Roberts, and that's why he stands out so much, because he just kept to that very tone, that one tone voice, looked at you dead in the camera, and yeah, used to scare the crap out of me. But tell you, Big Boss Man, back in that day when he was a babyface, I started to actually really believe him. I started to get into his character, and for me, I just enjoyed what I was seeing. Like, I thought this guy, against Nows and stuff like that, I got very caught up in the moment, very gullible into thinking this is real. And at WWF had signed, a guy's still wearing his convict outfit all the time in matches, like he's really proud of it and stuff. And yeah, it was crazy. Now, the second time round with the Boss Man in the Attitude Era was fascinating, because, like I said earlier, like, they didn't change his name. He was brought into the corporation with Vince. He was actually one of the I think he was. Let me think. I think he was the first active wrestler that was part of the corporation, because you had the Two Stooges, you had Vince. I think he was the first guy that they got, and he was brought in as some sort of like bodyguard type persona, and then I think that led on with everyone else, of course. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, The Rock, and then Shamrock came after that, and all the rest of it. But he was a part of this corporation who, by the way, like the corporation, and I'm going to talk about them maybe next week because I think that deserves its own bit. I want to talk about that a lot, but I think they're very. I think the whole thing was underrated a little bit, but there you go. But the boss man involved with Vince McMahon obviously kind of puts you on that pedestal already, like it's coming in. So like he had two, like when he first started, he was in there with Hogan. Now he's in there with Vince. Like you can't get much better than that, because Vince at the time was like arguably the biggest heel WWE had then, like without question, of all those guys. But he's run realistically, I mean, it was only until 99, so he only had like maybe a year and a bit in this time. The famous stuff I remember is him, um, and that is a solo, obviously, because then he done some tag teams with, I think it was Bull Buchanan was one of the guys in 2000. I remember that well. But remember the stuff he'd done with like Al Snow and the dog and all the rest of it. And I'm sure that led into some sort of cage match, as I recall. And then there were dogs around it. And I remember listening to Bruce Pritchard, and he was like, they wanted the dog to do things at certain times. like like there was some place you could go and hire out dogs that are going to do things on command and blah blah blah. Of course that's not going to happen. But I found that very, very fascinating. But I think I would say Boss Man, I mean, he had some belts. I know he won the tag belt, he had the hardcore, had the Intercontinental as well, I believe. So he had a fairly decent run. I actually appreciated him a lot as a wrestler. Obviously, done a lot of things before that and over at WCW as well. But I'm just keeping to the WWF here. I mean, it says here, and again, Wikipedia, you don't know what to believe, but it says he was billed at 6'7". I'm not sure he was 6'7", but he was a tall guy nonetheless. They do always add on a little bit extra there, a couple of extra feet if they need to. But yeah, he was a great guy. Really, really cool wrestler for me. Somebody I enjoyed watching. Great feuds, all the rest of it. Like, yeah, you can't beat it really. So anyway, we are coming to it's just gone really quick for me. I've got to be honest with you. I'm just going to give now a few plugs. We'll do this again next Wednesday. We'll see how this goes in that time. But I am just going to do a few plugs now for powered4.tv, which is, that's my bread and butter. I mean, this is where I want you guys to go check out, because, if you're in the UK, maybe you're working from home, maybe you're on lockdown or whatever, maybe you're on furlough, good opportunity to go and check out some fresh content. If you're in need of new stuff to watch, you've had enough of Netflix and Amazon and all the rest of it, then check out powered4.tv, because we've got over 25 promotions on there. I'm just going to give it a few plugs now to a couple of where I think you guys would like to go. Like, because sometimes I say to everybody, I'll go over to Powered 4 and check it out. And you might get there and think, well, what am I looking at? So I've kind of picked out 3 shows that I want to recommend right now. One of them is this. Now, you can't see my face, which is probably not a bad thing. We've got Paul Robinson right on the front of this one. Fantastic wrestler. One of my favorites. This is a show I was actually present on, and this is available now on powered4.tv. But this particular show was really, really good. Lots of good stuff. Corey McRae, Millie McKenzie, Jodie Fleisch. You got Harry Mant there. The lads tag team. And if you're not familiar with UK wrestling, like these DNA Pro Wrestling really do offer some great stuff. Like they build some fantastic cards in what they produce, and it's one of those shows that honestly, it's got it all. It's not long. It's not like you're gonna sit for 3 hours. They keep to a very strict time. The way they produce, that's what I'd put this over as. I'd say it's very, very well paced for me. So DNA Pro Wrestling, go and check that out. Now, next, I would like to bring on. Here we go. Ignite, Ignition Wrestling. This is Ignite Fire. This is actually the last show that TNT were able to put on, and basically Ignition is like the sister company, where they have a little bit, they have more of the academy guys on, and experienced guys as well. But as you can see on the front, you've got the likes of Mr. Simon Miller, Dean Allmark there, Ridgeway, and all the rest of it. This is a great show. It's the last one they did. Obviously, if you sign up, you get this plus everything else is available as well. Like, it's not just this one show. You're going to get all the other stuff as well. So, yeah, go out your way to check this. I mean, there's some great moments in it. It's just a great all-round wrestling card. But, like I said, the other one is a good pacing. This one is a good, like, card builder for me. This has just got that about it. And last but not least, I want to flick over to this 1PW, which is something we've got access to and content to. We drop these every Wednesday, which is today, so there'll be a new one up there anyway. But if you go over there and sign up, you'll get we drop 1PW events every week, but plus we've got all the other stuff in our archive, so you can check it out. I think there's over 15 shows available now, but check this one out: Steve Corino versus Abyss. I mean, honestly, back then these guys did some crazy stuff. Yeah, you got Southern Comfort there, you got Teddy Hart was involved. Honestly, 1PW, they just had like guys from TNA, Ring of Honor, Noah, New Japan, the UK scene, just all over the place, and they managed to just put on these great shows every couple of months in the UK. And I'm really delighted to have the access to it, because you've got guys like AJ Styles, like where he was. I mean, it's hard to say he wasn't in his prime then, because he was so good back then as well. But you got Pac that was there before he turned to Adrian Neville and all the rest of it. You've got guys like Christopher Daniels, Kazarian, Jeff Jarrett was on there. I mean, just a real mixed bag. Bryan Danielson. So honestly, and these matches, they're like doing the things that you just wouldn't see them being able to do in WWE. Like AJ Styles would just not be allowed to do after stuff that you see in some of these matches. So honestly, go out your way, check out those events, so you won't be disappointed. And don't forget to use the promo code below me, SP3. We're coming to the end now. I'm not going to hang about too much more. I'll just check before I go. I mean, I think we went through most of the iconic wrestlers you could give me. Just going to flash this up now. What we got from Mike Angus: chatted to Barry in the bar in London for ages. Back in 2015, he chatted a bit like the Repo Man. Yeah, I mean, maybe he just got into his character so much, Mike, that he just thought, I've got to be him 24/7. I would have loved to have sat down with a guy like that and just chatted. For me, so yeah, we'll do the same thing. Maybe I'll do 3 every week, and we'll just go from there. From doing like retro wrestling kind of stuff on Wednesdays. Don't forget, I'll be back on Friday now, same time, 11:30 UK time in the morning. And I think I might do everything but wrestling on Friday. But then again, we always talk about wrestling in some way. I'm sure we'll be talking about tonight's Wednesday night antics with AEW and NXT and all the rest of it. Don't forget, guys, before I go, check out powered4.tv, wrestling streaming on demand. That's our bread and butter. Go over there, use the code SP3, 50% off your first month. Over 25 promotions available to you now at your fingertips. Some really good stuff. Like I say, check out the 1PW stuff. I'm sure today's involves AJ Styles. There's, I think, Bryan Danielson when he was the Ring of Honor champion. And yeah, just some great stuff and content to go and check out. But yeah, want to thank everybody that's contributed. Don't Don't forget to give a like and subscribe. Very much appreciate that. And until Friday, I've been John Scott. You've been watching Powered 4 Daily on our Talk Pro Wrestling. I will see you next time, guys.
We are about the love of pro wrestling. To re-watch our favourite wrestlers' moments. To live and breathe through the eyes of their opponents.
I swear I'm going to come at you like the pit bull that everyone thinks I am. I'm going to come at you harder and tougher than you've ever experienced before.
Under my belt and prove to people that I'm not just a model, that Mariah May is more than just a pretty face and they can't just kick me around. I actually can prove myself and I can wrestle, and I worked hard to be here.
So it sounds like
Scared! I love it! I don't care if you want to step in the ring with me. John Scott, is it? I remembered your name. You get my name right, hey?
It is an absolute joke that you would stand there and ask us that question, that anybody here thinks they even have to ask us that question, and that anyone out there would doubt us. So the next time you want to ask me that question, just read the fucking tweet and the context. You're wasting our time.
Thank you.